call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have a flag or no? I'm sure y'all have one at home though, right? Yeah. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we have a checklist to ensure meetings are compliant with the right to know law during the state of emergency. As the chair of the Weare board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as the result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order 12 pursuant to executive order 2004, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note, there is no physical location to observe and listen to contemporaneously to this meeting, which is authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video of electronic meetings. We're utilizing Zoom for this meeting. As all members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing in or through the Zoom software. We did provide public notice on our SAU web page and on Facebook and email, I think. If you have a problem, please call Jackie Coe. Jackie, give me your number again, please.
It is 428-3269.
Thank you. Or email jacqueline.co@sau24.org. If, in the event the public is unable to access this meeting, we will adjourn and reschedule. Note that all votes are going to be taken by roll call votes, so we'll have the name and the vote. So we're going to start with a roll call of attendance. When each member states their presence, please also note whether there's anyone else with you in the room, which is required under the right to know law. So Wendy Curry in my basement lair alone. Jackie?
Jackie Coe, I'm at the SAU.
Greg?
Greg Reinert at the SAU.
Great. Christine?
Christine Heath, I'm in my room by myself.
Jess?
Home alone.
Martha?
Martha LeMahieu at my house alone.
Chris Roy?
I'm in my office alone at home.
Heidi?
Heidi Colburn, I'm here alone.
Katie, Luther, Martha, I called you already, right? These things flips around. Rochelle?
I'm in my office alone.
Natasha?
Hi, I am at home, but my husband just walked in.
Okay. Sean?
In my sort of home office alone.
Okay. Phil Matsky?
I am in my home office alone.
Okay. Did I miss anyone?
Yep. Sue Morin.
Oh, hi, Sue. Yay.
Trying to find my camera. Well, I have the camera. There we go. In a minute.
There you are.
Upstairs alone, but there are two others in the house.
Okay. Yay, we can start now. All right. So do we have any amendments to the agenda?
I think the only amendment might be to move the conversation about deliberative session up.
To a person scheduled before to appear.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. I also noticed this has discussion of school district warrant 2021 above the public comment. Is that right?
Yes, it's
okay.
Going into it if you have changes.
Okay.
You need to make.
Okay, so that's a question for the board. If there's any, does anyone have any changes you want to make to the warrant ahead of the public hearing? No? Okay, well, we're up to the first public comment of the night. So it's on the agenda twice, at the beginning and after new business. If you want to speak, you sign in, you raise your hand on the little participant field. If you're having issues with that, you can message Jackie, I'm sure, in the chat. Then you give your name, your address, and the group that you're representing. The comment is closed if after 10 minutes or whenever there's no more comments. Please keep your presentations no longer than 3 to 5 minutes. You're welcome to talk about agenda items. Items not on the agenda can be raised. However, we won't comment on them. Not going to talk about personal, private staff or students. There's a huge policy on this, but those are the big highlights that I want to make sure you all know. All right, so the first action we have. Oh, wait, so is there anybody who wants to public comment? Do I see anybody? Okay. Also, you'll notice there's a little red circle by Greg's name. We are, pursuant to our last meeting, we are recording these and putting these on YouTube so that people who are unable to be here can actually watch and see what went on, which is exciting. Okay. So having no public comments, I will move to, do I have a motion to accept the minutes dated December 15th, 2020?
Heidi Colburn, so moved.
Heidi, okay, do we have a second?
Christine, I'll second.
Okay, do we have any corrections to the minutes?
Could I just ask Rochelle, under the facilities report, you also mentioned that there were 100 more Chromebooks on order?
Yeah, that they hadn't received yet.
Okay, but the meeting before, Sean had said they had received 100. Have we ordered 200 recently?
Yes.
Could we have it noted under facilities that 100 were ordered?
The 200 total were ordered, but only 100 came in?
Well, so we put an order that we needed and we realized it was not going to come in time for the to meet the grant specifications. And knowing that we had a need, we did go and found a vendor that could get them to us so we could get it in before that December 31st deadline. So we, rather than cancel the order, we decided, since we were in the queue, to keep because we do have that need.
Okay, so can we get the minutes to reflect that? I think is a question. Okay, any other corrections or additions to the minutes? All right, hearing none, voice vote to accept the minutes dated December 15th, 2020. Heidi?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Sue?
Yes.
Wendy, yes. Do we have any communications? Nope.
I
Okay.
don't think so.
All right, so under person scheduled to appear before the board, Luke Drake is here. He is our moderator. He's going to talk to us. We had a meeting with him, the executive staff and him last week, to sort of look at what our options are for the deliberative session. So he's going to introduce and talk about things from his perspective, and then we can move on to the larger deliberative session discussion.
Thank you. So I'm Luke Drake, for those who haven't met me, school board moderator. Interesting time to be drafted into this role, and obviously not without a lot of excitement this past year. I did get to host the in-person one last year, and so that was interesting. So as mentioned, we had a meeting where we discussed the options for proceeding with the deliberative session. And there were 3 basic options discussed. The first would be to have a normal meeting at the normal time with some additional considerations about space. And we also discussed, how we might deal with, in that eventuality, folks who might not want to wear masks, issues of that nature. So that's one option, is to go forward as normal with some sort of physical changes to the layout. The second point that we discussed was a possibility to postpone the deliberative session And the moderator has the ability under the statute to postpone the meeting. Right now, the way it's written, the moderator would have to renew that postponement every 72 hours until such time as the emergency or situation was averted. And then there was a third option discussed somewhat about doing it as scheduled, but on Zoom, and then having an ability to receive comments during the deliberative session through email, or a second session with the moderator to consider and address comments received by the public during the deliberative session. So we talked about that with also the possibility of following that up with the drive-through voting, should that be the case. So again, we met with the board leadership and the SAU to discuss those options. I'll say, just so that everyone's aware from my personal experience, I work for the federal government and I get to see the reports on COVID around the country every single day. In every county, I actually represent 22 of the states that are affected by this. And so I've been on hundreds and hundreds of calls now about COVID issues. And unfortunately, in my organization, we've lost some of our folks to COVID in the workplace. So I'm particularly sensitive to the arrangements around this. So having said that, though, I wanted to get a feel for how everyone else was feeling. And for those who might not be aware, I have two other school board participants in my household, one being my wife, who's on the high school board, the other being my daughter, who is the high school student body representative to the school board. So I have had input. And there were a lot of concerns that were raised. So as part of my homework, as I was saying, what I was tasked with was to reach out per the requirements of the statute to discuss the concerns and possibilities with the town administration. So I did that after a meeting last week. I reached out to Naomi Bolton. And I also sent an email to the selectmen. I was unable to raise them on the phone. Naomi got back to me and said that they had heard what our discussion was and that they were consulting with the town council, and that at this point, the town of Weare was taking the position that they were going to continue with the town session for the town meeting as scheduled, but they were moving the facility from the cafeteria to the gym to allow for more social distancing. That notwithstanding, as the moderator, and I did discuss this with the town, that I'm not comfortable with that arrangement at this time, and given particularly the spikes we're seeing, that I'm seeing every day, the fact that we had the highest death toll, unfortunately, since this pandemic began yesterday, with over 4,000 Americans passing. I just can't rationalize the balance sort of between the need to proceed with the town's legitimate business and the health and welfare of the community. We've got the school in working at, in remote learning situations. We've got a real question about the efficacy of some of the technological solutions. And by the way, Cordell, if you're still on, I did go to the Municipal Association website and read your write-up on last year's Henniker meetings. That was quite a read. Sounds like quite a special time. But frankly, during that, I recognized that there are shortcomings to these other potential technological solutions. And while I'm not at this point dismissing any of those, I do think that it's the best course of action to at least postpone the deliberative sessions for some period of time. Now, so folks are also aware there's a SB 2 is a Senate bill that has been approved by the Senate, but not yet the House, that allows for some modifications to the procedures for delaying the town sessions, deliberative sessions. So following up on that and trying to understand its relationship to House Bill 1129, I called and spoke with Representative Keith Erf, who happens to live across the field from me, so we're familiar. And I kicked that around with him for a while, and he actually educated me on part of the process that I had sort of misaligned in my mind. But basically what he said was he was supportive of passing SB2, but that there was language in there that from his perspective and some of the other legislators' perspective was problematic in that it removed some authority from the elected moderators and transitioned that to the town selectmen. And so apparently there are concerns about the legality of that and the complications of that, and obviously the various roles of the elected officials. So long story short, maybe, the result of that is that won't be in place in time for us to make a determination or to use those rules, at least in the initial stages. So that being the case, again, I followed up with Naomi Bolton, who I had a conversation with about 20 minutes ago, and a second conversation, to be fair, but she was getting back to me to say that the town council has acknowledged that this is the moderator's call, and that the only they do have some concerns about timeliness and how we would be able to conduct the balloting, which traditionally, of course, we conduct the school board ballot at the same time as the town ballot. And however, council has advised them that if that's the position of the moderator, that we'll just have to work our way through that. Now, so what I'll say is it's my determination right now that the best course of action is postponement, though I haven't locked in how long we ought to continue that. I'll let you know that in our discussion with the members of the boards and the SAU, we also talked about, if we could get to a place where we could do this in a more open environment, like, under a tent outside where, social distancing wouldn't be an issue and where we could deal with any concerns about folks who might not want to wear masks, for example, that would be preferable. But of course, we live in New Hampshire, and so getting to that point is going to necessarily require delaying for some time. So that's the long way around saying at this point, it's my intention to delay the deliberative session for 72 hours at a time, which will be interesting to work the technical details and the notification to the town members. It is not the intention of this moderator to in any way thwart the input of the electorate. In fact, it is the opposite. One of the concerns that I've struggled with is in the COVID environment, there's actually a significant number of people who might otherwise want to engage but not feel comfortable in coming to an in-person session. So I've spoken a lot. I'm a little over caffeinated. So I'll take a break and see if there are any questions for me.
That was a great recap. Do we have any questions for board members?
I do have a question. How long are you thinking you're going to have to delay it? And I'm not really sure if delaying it is going to make COVID any less of a risk.
That's a great question. What I'll say is, at this point, I'm not clear. As I said, I mean, clearly the long-term solution of a vaccine or something like that is not viable. We have to, in discussions with everyone, we have to make a decision by this summer, of course, because we have a deadline to pass the budget, or we end up in some kind of a undesirable default position. So I'm not clear on what that would be at this point. One of my concerns is the timeliness of the spikes that we're seeing in COVID right now. And it's my hope that that as we get further away from frankly, the darkest days of winter when everybody's congregated and all of those sorts of things, that the rates will go down. And one of the measures we use in the federal government is the number of cases per 1,000 per county. And that's one of the things we're looking at is, but unfortunately, the entire country is in pretty tough shape right now in terms of that, in terms of, the spread. And of course, as you've heard, we've got a couple other variants of the COVID out there now that are even more easily transmissible. So I can't answer the how long would this go on. My desire is to have it go on the shortest amount of time necessary. I have no interest in unnecessarily extending this, but I can't answer specifically how long it will go on. I will go back to say that I do believe once we get to an environment where we might be able to do something like this again under a tent in an environment where we can more adequately socially distance. Because I'll remind everyone, when I was talking to the town, they said, well, we're going to set up 6-foot separation at the town meeting. And I shared with them that, well, 6-foot separation is the CDC's minimum for a 15-minute exposure period. It's not a desirable place to be and to have, high-risk folks for an extended period. And as we all know, the nature of a deliberative session is to deliberate. People get excited, people are getting up and talking, and it's just let's wade into it. I'm sorry, I don't have a specific date that I'm looking for. I assure you, I don't want to do 72-hour postponements every 72 hours any more than we absolutely have to. But what I'm going to be looking to do is to work with the SAU and the leadership from the school boards to help me come to an informed decision about that.
I will add, I should have probably added it before I asked questions. So as Luke mentioned, there was 3 options, and the executive committee spent a ton of time going over these, because I think the consensus across all the boards is we want to allow as much of our community to participate, have a say in be part of our democratic process. If we go to the remote option, we cut off that participation. People can send an email, but we don't have a vote, right? So that's not something that I can support, right? I think part of our deliberative session, part of what makes our SB2 board so powerful is we get together as a community and we talk through issues. And we cut that off, we've cut that limb off, right? So that's number 1. Number 2 is the in-person. If we were to meet in person next month, there are vocal valued members of our community who are in that risk category, right? You think about Marge, who then are either have to choose between keeping themselves safe or not participating in the democratic process. And the third option is to delay. And I think that's kind of where most of the board leadership went. We kind of have to do that. I think, ideally, we get to March or so, we have a nice day, we could do that. But that's not my call. That's Luke's call. But I do, given the 3 horrible options, it's kind of the safest one. Anyway, sorry, I just got off on a tangent. Is there any other board members who have any thoughts, questions for Luke?
Yeah, just go ahead, Heidi.
Is there an end date that this has to be done by? I mean, we have a vote coming up. Like, what is our legal requirement to have this done by a certain time?
Luke, I think our end date, like our budget, has to be in place by the end of June. Is that right?
Jackie had the answer to that.
So I believe what happened in other communities, Hopkinton would be, I think, one of them. When they didn't get the budget, they operated on this year's budget, not a default budget, but this year's bottom line, and continued to operate under that until they were able to pass a budget. What happens as far as our teacher contracts, which by statute are required to go out by April 15th, that there's an executive order that actually allows, because of the emergency, allows for, it modifies it and makes it that notice and those contracts have to go out 2 weeks after a budget passed. So, there is a contingency plan with this. It's not excellent, but it is a way that we can continue to function into the summer if we needed to.
Jackie, could you reiterate that date for me? The teacher's contract. What was that timeline?
So April 15th is when we are in a normal year, when we need to let folks know that they have a position with us. And so we back everything up to make sure that we can do that. What the governor's order does is allow, because of COVID and because of everything towns are going through, it extends that until you have a passed budget. And so the notice needs to come 2 weeks after a passed budget. In Hopkinton, that passed budget, I think, happened in August this year. And so then they had 2 weeks to get those contracts out.
So Jackie, what would that mean for the teachers? They would keep the same contract they're on now?
They would not have a contract, I don't think. And so right about now is when everyone's having those conversations. So I'm expecting to learn more as people think through the nuances. Mm-hmm. From what I've heard from colleagues, a lot of districts are considering the postponement. And so we're all going to be in the same boat. I am concerned about if we are out of line with what our neighboring communities are doing from a teacher perspective. If I'm not going to get a contract in the Weare School District, but if there's an opening and I can apply to a school somewhere else and I can get a contract, I do worry about what the implications of that are. However, that being said, if we're in line with what other towns are doing, then we're all going to be in the same boat.
Okay, so by the way you were talking, you were making it sound like we were going to wait until nicer weather. Is that correct?
That's one of the options. I will say we did discuss the 415, and I wasn't interested. I wasn't thinking we would wait all the way or postpone all the way until May, for example. I think there might be other provisions we could make as it gets a little bit warmer. I am very sensitive to the teacher's contract issue. I work in labor myself. I'm not interested in adversely affecting an agreement, and I'm certainly not interested in losing talented teachers in our town. Frankly, we have enough of a struggle with that as it is. So anything I can do to expedite this, I'm certainly interested in doing. It's a very difficult balance between all of these concerns. Over.
So if what Luther was saying, the town is still going to go through on the 6th, the following Saturday from when we're supposed to have our deliberative. If the town has theirs, we would still have the vote in March, but we may not have the school ballot in March. So it'd be 2 separate elections. And you just said you would want to, even May is too far out. So for a few weeks of postponement from the March, if we were to put it to the beginning of April, say, so that we could maybe meet the 2-week, the mid-April deadline, we would have to host separate election processes and all the costs that go along with that. To get 2 or 3 weeks postponement. What is the latest? How often? I mean, you have to postpone every 3 days. It sounds like the legislation isn't going to be there to do otherwise. How far can we push it out, or can we at all, and still align with the March election? We have it out, right? We count back. So, yeah. I go to both, and I think the crowd is the same size in both. If the town is going to have theirs 3 days later, I don't know what that's going to do to school support if we postpone and go through all the extra tasks that we would have to. That concerns me.
It's going to look very poorly for the school if the town does it and then we don't.
And you mentioned other school districts are postponing. Are there towns postponing with them? Is Henniker, I know it's not just Henniker, even outside of our SAU. Are towns pretty much postponing, just not ours? Or
Cordell, what are you guys doing in Henniker?
Hi. We and For those who don't know, hi, I'm Cordell Johnston. I'm the town moderator and school district moderator in Henniker, and we have not made a decision yet, but I'm pretty sure we are going to postpone. And in part, well, primarily for the reasons that that Luke outlined, that you have talked about, concern about the safety of the voters and not wanting to use the drive-up process because it takes voting power away from the voters. So we are looking at postponing probably until sometime in April. Now, the difference is the town of Henniker does not have SB2, unlike all of the school districts which do. And the Henniker School District, the school board last night talked about postponing, and that is their plan as I understand it. So if the Henniker School District postpones its deliberative session, then it will have to postpone its official ballot session, its election. And since that's held in conjunction with the Henniker election, we are, unless we could separate them, which I'm not even sure you can legally, we're going to have to the town's going to have to postpone its election, even if it didn't want to, because the school district doing it kind of makes it happen. So I'm pretty sure what will happen is the school district will postpone its deliberative session. And I don't know until exactly what date, but say sometime in April, and then have and the town will also postpone its business session, and then we'll end up having the election for both town and school district sometime. It would need to be a certain number of days after the school district's deliberative session. So I would guess we'd be looking at May at least for the election.
Thank you. Other school board members have questions for Luke?
I do, Wendy.
Okay.
Luke, when you spoke with Naomi, did it sound like they were open to possibly postponing it, or are they steadfast in wanting to keep it on that date?
So that's a great question. I wasn't very clear from talking to Naomi on that. And so what I've done, as I said, was I communicated directly with all of the select persons. I haven't heard back from them, but it's my intention to follow up with each of them to have that discussion. You know, I'm not interested in making this more difficult. I am very sensitive to the perceptions of, a different decision on this side from this side. So that's an ongoing discussion. As soon as I get something, I'll certainly share that with all the board leads and with Jackie, to say, here's what they're considering. But I don't, at this point, I'm not even clear. I was asking the question, myself, has that decision been formally and finally made? And I wasn't clear that it was. I was clear that they were discussing and leaning strongly in that direction. So one of the things that Cordell just mentioned, I took a note of, seemed to be contrary to what I heard in my discussion with Naomi. She thought they could, in fact, separate the balloting of the town versus the school board. I am not an attorney, and so I'm not, well versed on those things, and I have to defer to others. But that's a question that I'll follow up on from Cordell's information here.
And just to be clear, Luke, I'm not saying, I'm not sure that they can't do that. But I have questions about that. I'm not sure how it can be done.
Understand it, and I have questions as well, and that's why when Naomi told me the last earlier in the week that they were going to town council, I was actually hoping to engage with town council on these questions so that I could understand and come back and explain to everybody what their position was. I haven't had that opportunity yet, so I'm still working that, and I feel like I have an IOU to everyone to get back with you as soon as I get something more firm.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
just
so-
curious because a lot of the meetings are now going to Zoom of other committees and also with the town hall being closed now and by appointment only. And so I didn't know if maybe there was starting to be a shift from when that was last discussed. But another thing too, and Luke, I appreciate about the, when you brought up about how they're 6 feet spacing. And like you said, that's for a 10 to 15 minute period, but it's also with a second layer of protection. And we did meet as a board, but we were able to have doors open. We had masks and we had a 6 feet. And I'm very concerned that we wouldn't. And I've also watched a lot of meetings where as soon as someone stands up, the mask comes off. And we know that sometimes heated discussions can happen. And when heated discussions happen, more droplets. And I have been going to meetings for years now, and I'm very second guessing if the town meeting is in place about being able to attend that, because I don't feel like there's going to be a second layer. So I do appreciate you bringing that up.
I think we have a selectman here. John Van, are you a selectman?
I'm wondering the postponement and what we're discussing is actually a moderator's discussion. According
It's
to the
100% right. And that was
So
kind of
do we have a town moderator? I think Cordell said he's both, so that's nice. I'm wondering if Luther.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's Eileen Meany, right?
Yes.
Eileen is
Meany is the town moderator. I also have a message into Eileen to discuss this, to see, because again, that's at the end of the day, that's her call. Now, understanding family dynamics, her husband is also the head of the select board. So I'm sure that there are some kitchen table conversations going on that point. And I'm trying to sort of, as I said, connect with them and hear what their thoughts are.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, Sue. I mean, I think the takeaway, I think one of the reasons we wanted Luke to come is to make it clear to the community that it's Luke's decision whether we're going to postpone or not. And then as a board, I think we have some discussions later. We have to figure out how we're going to manage the reality of deliberative sessions with COVID. John Van, you're on the selectman, right?
Yes, ma'am, I am. However, I'm here. I'm only attending this as a resident, not as selectman.
Okay. I think Jackie said you had a question. It's not public comment right now, but I think since we have Luke right here, if you had a question, that would be reasonable.
All right, and I appreciate you letting me bump in real quick. So one of the questions that did come up in my discussion with another resident here in town is if the SAU decides to go forth and separate themselves from the town vote and delay it by 3 days, 6 days, 2 months, whatever you folks decide. Typically, the SAU, I hate using the term, but piggybacks on the town vote, as you guys have already mentioned earlier. The school vote, do you guys have it in your budget to handle paying the people to come in and actually run it for you?
Right. I think that was one of the questions that came up earlier that Cordell mentioned. I think we got to bring the law in, right? So it might actually force a postponement of the election, even for the town, if the school's not ready. But I don't know that anybody has that answer for sure yet. But certainly a budget is a concern.
All right. Thank you for answering that.
We do not have that in our budget. The only thing we could look to potentially is if we have a new round of federal funds, grant funds coming to deal, because obviously this would be a COVID cost.
I can say that, again, this is Luke, in my discussion with Naomi, we did discuss that, John, the potential increase in cost. My takeaway from that conversation was that the town would bear that, but that wasn't explicit. So I don't understand how that works. And again, I'll defer to attorneys on those calls. But I will follow up with Naomi and Jack to have that discussion.
We also need to keep in mind that whether it's the school or the town paying it, it's neither. It's still the same taxpayers, and they're going to be very angry.
Depending on what happens, right? I mean, if they delay, if it forces the town to delay, there's still only one election day.
Right. I just mean if there's two separate, like they were
Mhm.
talking about, it's still the same taxpayers that are going to be paying it.
Sure, fair.
Well, what I'll say as the moderator with the call on that is I get it. And frankly, if I am not reelected to the position as a result of my taking that position, I accept the will of the voters on that point. But I have been asked to, to make the best call I can in the position. And as the elected person, like it or not, and I say like it or not to me, because I'm not fond of being in this position, frankly. This isn't really what I signed up for when I signed up to be the school board moderator. But since I have to make a call, I have to be able to stand by my call. So again, were there some new information to come forward between now and the time we have to actually engage with the postponement process? I'm certainly open to those discussions, and I'm certainly open to a more complete discussion with the town leadership.
Any other questions from the board?
I just want to say thank you, Luke, for the time that you're putting into this. You're obviously putting a lot of time and thought and energy into making this decision, and it's not an easy one to make. So thank you.
Thank you, Luke. That was very informative. Okay, so the other person we have scheduled up here is the PTO. We have a slot for them. Does anyone know if someone from the PTO is here? No. All right. So we'll move to committee reports. Curriculum.
Yep, so the curriculum committee met December 16th, and at that meeting, we had a presentation on our new math program and kind of heard about how we came to the decision to get a new math program. Everyday math was not something that people were satisfied with. So the math committee created a rubric and to evaluate different math programs. And there were a couple that came to the top, but iReady was chosen, and it's one that they already used for assessments. So now it is used for the full curriculum resource, and there's been a lot of teacher training on it. It's very user-friendly. There's been positive feedback so far from the teachers, and it is nice because it is embedded with the testing that the students do. It gives prerequisite reports that show what the students have done or need to fill in gaps for certain lessons that are coming up. So far it's going really well, and the teachers have had positive feedback about that. And that's really what we spent our entire meeting talking about, and our next meeting is January 20th.
So for community relations, we met last week. A couple updates. We're going to we're going to do 3 coffees with the town so that people could have a chance to talk to the board about the budget. Because of the delay, we're postponing those to make it closer to when that eventual deliberative session happens. The other thing we talked about was the mailer. And same thing, that one's on a bit of a delay. We don't want to send out something saying, here's how you should vote. So just to recap, we're going to have our public hearing tonight. We're going to have a warrant article that we're proposing for deliberative session. We're going to affirm that sort of what the board accepts tonight. There's not going to be a change to that between now and the deliberative session, right? So it's not going to be this secret thing that's still in flux, but we don't want to send out a mailer this week and then have people like forget about it and then 3 months later not have that information. So the mailer is going to get delayed as well. Let's see. So policy, did we meet in policy this month? I don't think so. No. Okay. It's been a lot of meetings over the last couple weeks. Facilities.
Facilities didn't meet since the last meeting. We meet tomorrow.
Okay, great. Wellness.
So I believe I did report out for Centerwood Wellness. They met on December 11th. And we're talking about wanting more playground equipment so that they could use it, working up towards their end of the year field day. And I believe Jess was able to get that. We have another meeting this Friday at 7:45. And then since then, the middle school wellness meeting we had on, can't remember the day, the 18th, December 18th. They were able to get 2 water filling stations, and they're going to be asking for what they usually do for the money from the board so that they can use, they're trying to reimagine the 5K at the end of the school year. And they've got a lot of really great ideas. They want to do something to keep that kind of going and maybe start something a little sooner. There's a lot of ideas that they're going to be going, and we're going to meet again at the end of the day next Friday. But they're trying to get support staff involved, the staff, the kids, and they just have to decide when to start and what exactly that's going to look like. Because as we all know, everything's changing day to day, week to week, month to month. So we have no idea what, the spring's going to look like.
True. Good. Transportation.
We still haven't met.
Okay. Negotiations, I think we're good there, right? In kindergarten, we're good there. Okay, great. All right, moving on to administrative reports. Principal report. Let's start with Sean this time.
Good evening, everyone. The only thing I would like to add to as written and presented is, again, a thank you. Staff, as you well know, have had to respond to so many changes and quick moves, and I cannot give enough gratitude out to staff members who have stepped up to help us when we've received information that we needed to respond to, and that goes down to the janitorial staff and out to the front office staff and to all the teaching staff, and then also up to the SAU, who has always reached out to us whenever we're in the midst of something we need to respond to, and have amazingly supported us. So thank you to everyone who's a part of the solutions that we continually need to do. And other than that, I will be quiet unless the board has questions.
Questions for Sean? No? Okay. Jess?
I'd like to echo what Sean just said. The staff, not only the staff in our building, but the staff in her building who have been helping us has been just amazing. The support is there. However, the struggle is real. Although we've been face to face and we've been able to be open, it is a struggle, but we're able to do it with the help of our parents, the staff, and the staff outside of our building. So I appreciate that very much. Other than that, it is as presented.
Great. Questions for Jess? Nope. Okay, Jackie.
Our report is as reported, and I was talking about how it was the report I'm going to submit as my annual report. And so it's a natural reflection point, to think about what happened in the past year. I, going into it, had anticipated it was going to be, COVID. And, clearly that is there, but we made progress and we made things happen in spite of, and maybe in some cases because of, going through this crisis. And so that was uplifting to get through that report and have that reflection.
Excellent. Questions for Jackie? Nope. All right, Chris, get the reconciliation report.
All right. So I'm gonna do a little bit of update on the revenue side of things tonight. So just looking down the list here, the adequacy, we just received another payment on January 1st, so that amount will go up um, on the February report, and the special education aid that's just trickling in this month as well. We got about 29,000 in Weare, so that we over we hit above the mark that we had projected for that. Medicaid, we're still a little bit nervous about whether that's all going to come in. I think that the net last number that got ran by me was about 7,000. So maybe like about 1,000 more than what you're seeing on the page is stuff that's coming in this month. So we're hoping that that comes in a little bit quicker, but I think that we're just seeing that the eligible participants aren't there as they used to be. Transportation, it says 0 there, but that was actually processed, and you'll see that on the next month's reconciliation. Tuition, because that's preschool tuition and we're not doing preschool this year, that will not come in. And interest will be lower, as you can probably project there. So we're looking at a shortfall there. And then also, I just wanted to reiterate that we do have the $100,000 that was held back by the board earlier this year that we do not anticipate utilizing. So that'll be in the bottom line of the revenues at the end of the year. The expenditure side, we haven't overspent anything, so that's positive on that end. And our general fund balance of $786,730.06 is actually higher than this time last year. So we're on a good pace for the end of the year.
Do we have questions for Chris?
Yeah, Chris, the 100,000 that we had in reserve, is that noted here? Is that part of the reserve fund balance?
Yeah, that's within the unreserved fund balance. So when you look at like the DRA reports that we submitted,
Right.
their unreserved fund balance was 689, and then the 100,000 was on top of that. So actually, as I kind of say that out loud, it'd probably be more accurate to parse that out. So I'll actually ask Rob to do that to show that it's 689,307 is the amount that went back to the town, and then 100,000 is revenue currently to us.
Yeah, it was just under the originally voted budget, which I think is kind of inaccurate. So, but it is part of that 700 right now.
So the original voted budget. So the way that works is we have an opportunity on the revenue side right before tax rates get set to update that based on the newest information, adequacy, statewide education.
Even in the fall.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I actually updated that to be accurate along the lines of what DRA had and what they set the tax rate on.
Anyone else? All right, under old business deliberative session, we just had that discussion. We have 5 minutes before we recess for public hearing. Is the request for proposal something that we can fit in, or should we wait?
I just wanted Greg to give you an update on what he's working on, because it stemmed from a discussion that started with the Weare School Board.
Yeah, this is pretty quick. The request for proposal is something that has been written up to specify that we're looking to take and do live streaming for school board meetings. The other thing is we're looking at using this solution for all the school boards, basically sharing the costs. The request for proposal was reviewed by the superintendent and by Chris to make sure that we had what we needed to have in it. At this point, the plan is to take and go up and post it for public access on, I believe it's the 19th, which is the Tuesday, next Tuesday. It'll be going up on the website. We'll also be contacting some of the vendors that we work with for AV at the different schools to let them know as well that we're taking and doing this. We're going to be having it open, I think, for 2 or 3 weeks to allow the proposals to come in. And then we're going to go through the opening and review process. And then after that, we'll be doing the selection process based on it. We are providing an opportunity for the vendors, if they want to go on site to each of the schools to see the venues if they're interested in saying, okay, what are you trying to do with your AV stuff? And that's it in a nutshell.
Great. Do you have any questions for Greg? Okay, we got a couple minutes till our public hearing. Is there anything people want to get in? Do you want to take a pee break? Like, y'all are so quiet.
Wendy, this is Luke. Just a quick question on your process for how do you notify everyone via Zoom that you're back out of the non-public session?
Oh, okay. So, yeah. Oh, do we have a non-public today? We do. So typically we go out to a breakout room, and then people could stay in this main room, and then we come back. We're out of non-public.
Thank
So
you.
the public hearing will be public, obviously, but later on when we do non-public, that'll be what happens. We go into a special room, and you can stick around. But that's a good question.
Thank you.
And unrecess, and we'll move back to our regular scheduled meeting. We're up to new business. The first is, do I have a motion to adopt the 2021-2022 budget?
Heidi Colburn, so moved.
Heidi, okay, do we have a second?
Christine, I'll second.
Okay, do we have any discussion?
I just want to thank you guys for the hard work that you put into this. I know that the percentage doesn't look like a great number, but when you break it down the way that you did, it's greatly out of our control. So you guys really did a nice job making a minimal budget considering what families are going through this year with COVID. And I know that was your goal. And we really appreciate the teachers coming into the contract with that same idea in mind. So thank you guys.
I agree. And those additional slides, Jackie, that you provided in regards to response of some of the things that were brought up at the finance committee meeting, I'm hoping will continue with the transparency that people are asking for. I think it's really important to see $1 million cut. We're losing people, and we can't do that. Hopefully we will be back to full classrooms next year, and we don't know what our numbers will be. But we do know that once we start the school year, we don't have the teachers. That means bigger classrooms. That means, there's a whole lot there. So I'm hoping people will see, as Heidi said, that a lot of this is out of the school's control, out of our control, and that the part that is in control is minimal.
Anyone else? Hearing none, we have a roll call vote to adopt the 2021-2022 budget. Christine?
Yes.
Sue?
Yes.
Rochelle?
Yes.
Heidi?
Yes.
And Wendy, yes. Okay, the budget is adopted.
And Wendy, for those who came for the hearing and didn't hear our discussion about deliberative session, that I don't know.
Sure, that's a good point. So I tossed this. We had a long discussion with Luke, and he did a great job explaining the options and where we're at this year. One of the things that I mentioned, and probably it makes sense to mention it here, we've now adopted this budget. This is the budget we plan to go to the deliberative session with. We won't be changing it. However, right now the deliberative session is in a 72 our continuing delay until the Luke Drake, our school moderator, deems that we are safe to go to the deliberative session. So the deliberative session won't be when we typically do it, but we won't be changing anything. Right? Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah, so it's posted right now, I believe, for February 3rd. And what I understood is most likely at that point, Luke will postpone it for the 72 hours and we may continue, unless something drastically changes between now and then.
Right. Good point.
Am I putting words in your mouth, Luke?
No, not at all. That was excellent. I think that's
No,
something.
you're absolutely right. That's what we discussed. And I'm not sure of the appropriateness in this forum, but I am happy to address any questions about my contemplations on the matter.
Thanks, Luke. Okay, the next subject is the adoption of the school district warrant 2021. I assume we're going to go through the 3 that other than the budget. Yes, is that how that works? This is all new to me. So warrant article 1 for reports. Do I have a motion to accept that?
So moved.
Okay, Heidi, so moved. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Christine.
Any discussion?
I'm just curious if we need to do them separate.
Oh
Or
yeah, I guess we could do them all together. That's
just
fair.
if we have to do voice votes every time.
That's
roll
fair.
call
So the 3. So we've accepted the budget. So we have the reports, we have the school board salary, and we have the teacher's contract. So would you like to make a motion to accept the 3 of them?
Yes, I'm going to amend my motion to accept the 3 remaining warrant articles.
That's fair. Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll amend my second to accept all 3.
Okay, great. Do we have any discussion? Okay, roll call vote to accept the warrants. Christine?
Yes.
Heidi?
Yes.
Sue?
Yes.
Rochelle?
Yeah.
Sue? Did I say Sue?
Yeah. Yes.
Wendy? I need more caffeine. Wendy is yes. Okay. We are up to deliberative session rules for board members, and Sue called me out on this last month. So typically, the board chair will propose the budget, and I will go and do so. But similarly, typically when we have other warrant articles, someone from the board will speak to those. So, so obviously, I need someone who would be willing to talk to the CBA.
I guess I will.
You should, yes. Okay. So,
So this is for deliberative session?
mhm.
And how deep do I provide slides? Does someone make the slide and I talk about it?
Yeah, so there's some flexibility. You could use the slides that Jackie just showed.
That would be wonderful.
You could, talk from your heart about what you just did about the CBA, and how wonderful and the teachers have been in the process.
Now, do I field questions also, or is it just an informational?
There might be questions, but if there are questions that are, you can always call on Jackie, you can call on Natasha, you can call on other people to sort of fill that in.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So we do have the other 2 items. So someone could talk to the reports, someone could talk to the school board salary, or y'all could wimp out and make me do it all.
What exactly are all of those reports?
Yeah, Jackie, do you have the word of the warrant?
It says it's the reports of agents, auditors, committees, and officers chosen as printed in the annual report, but I really don't know what that means.
The have you seen the annual report? Within it, all of these things are retained, it contains all of these reports. And so
is anything changing with this?
no, this is standard language that is in
every year.
Here, the first
Okay.
two are just their statutory requirements, and they're on here, giving the public body an yearly opportunity to give you the authority within here and to pay you.
The SAU budget is in there as well. It's not just the school board, it's the whole SAU budget. That's
With the annual report.
Right.
So I don't mind reading those. I remember from the past though that unlike the Article 3 and 4, those two are usually just read and
Yeah.
There's no discussion. There's no, I mean, it could be, but
It's usually a really simple one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Often the
read
moderator does.
So Heidi, you're going to do the first one or the first two?
I can do both. It's fine.
Okay, great. So the other thing I was thinking about, and I'm just throwing this out there for discussion, do we want someone to explain this grant piece independent of the budget? I have no problem doing what Jackie just did, but I'm wondering if we had an individual person talk to that, if it might make it stand out more with people. I'm not sure. No. Okay.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I can do it.
Okay, that'd be great. And Jackie will get you whatever information you need, but I think that'll help people, because sometimes when I talk a lot, when you talk for like a half hour, people start to zone out after a while. So if you have a new face sort of talking, that sort of gets people re-engaged. That's what I was thinking.
Wendy, could I ask Jackie a quick question?
Yeah, of course.
In regards to the teacher contract, you had talked about, Jackie, that the teachers are going to have to pay an increase. What was it for the mandatory retirement contribution?
Not the mandatory retirement contribution. That's an employer contribution.
Employer.
Healthcare premiums are going up, and they're going up.
Okay.
We share those costs.
Okay.
So the increase is across the board.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything else we want to present at deliberative session, or is that everything? Okay. Super. It looks like we need to appoint a deputy school district clerk. So Maureen Bilodeau. Jackie, did you have anything you wanted to say, or is this a straightforward? Yeah, you're muted. There you go.
Yeah, straightforward.
So you just need a motion.
Yes.
Maureen Bilodeau as the deputy school district clerk.
Do I have a second?
I will second. Needed.
Christine seconded. Great. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none. Okay, roll call vote. Christine?
Yes.
Sue?
Yes.
Heidi?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
And Wendy? Yes, welcome. All right, we are up to our second public comment. This is an opportunity for the public who sort of sat through the whole session, who has anything that you'd like to share. Raise your hand. If you open up the participants field at the bottom, you'll see a little blue hand. You can put that up and let me know. Oh, there's Leah. Okay, go ahead, Leah.
Hi, I was just wondering why you guys are planning on postponing the deliberative session.
Yeah, no, that's a reasonable question. So we are not. Our moderator is, and he came and spoke to us earlier in the meeting.
I am still here if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead. Sure. Yeah.
So the reason we're looking at postponing the deliberative session is based on the pandemic, frankly. situation across the country and within New Hampshire is a high spread. And basically, it does not appear that it would be safe to ask our community members to assemble for this meeting when we have the option to delay it. We did also discuss, however, that there was a significant discussion about multiple options for moving forward with this. This wasn't something that we just pulled out of the air. There were the discussion centered around what would happen if we went through the normal process, a postponement process, and then there's also a process that might be viable under HB 1129 that would allow for a Zoom meeting for part of the session and then drive-in voting. But the problem with that arrangement was that it really introduced some oddities, frankly, in the deliberative session for allowing feedback from the voters. So in my judgment, the best option in the short term was to engage in postponement. I also mentioned that there is a bill before the House at the moment that already passed the Senate, SB 2, which is looking at some increased flexibilities in this area. But it was a discussion, there was a considered discussion with the board representatives, the SAU representatives, and myself. And I've also engaged with town leadership to talk about, the potential disconnects, if you will, between what the town's looking at doing with town meeting and the school board meeting. So it falls, fortunately or unfortunately, to me to make that call. And at this point, I'm simply not comfortable with the current pandemic situation with going forward with the public session.
Thank you, Luke. Tom, go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Yeah, same question, but I also make a comment that as far as I know, the town is having a public hearing on Monday, the 18th in the middle school. Don't know if that's changed. If I have bad information, you can correct me. And I think the deliberative is scheduled for February 6th in the middle school as well. So I'm wondering why there's such a disconnect there. And also, can this affect the town election as a whole if there's a delay into the zone of the election?
Okay, so I assume that would come to me again.
I apologize. I might have missed that in the beginning of the meeting. If I did, I apologize.
No concerns at all. Happy to explain. The town is separate. The moderator for the town is not the same as the school board moderator. I did engage with the town as the school board moderator after our meeting last week to talk about where the town was headed. And in fact, I had a conversation earlier this evening with Naomi Bolton, who's the town administrator. I have also reached out to the selectmen as is required under the statute. I can't discuss, or I can't speak to the town's deliberations on the issue, obviously. I'm the school board moderator, not the town moderator. I am looking to coordinate a discussion with Eileen Meany, who is the town moderator. I'm not, at this point, I'm not clear on where the town is, if they've made a firm commitment. But nonetheless, those are separate decisions by separate elected representatives. And sometimes in democratic government that happens. There are differences of opinion. So I can't speak to why the town made their decision. I'm happy to discuss my background and information that I see on a daily basis regarding COVID and my experiences with that lead me to my position. Over.
Yeah, and so the question I asked at the end there was, if you could, does this have a chance to impact the town election as well overall, since they're usually tied together?
Right, and so that was a discussion that we had earlier also about, and there's some lack of clarity on that point. One of the things in my discussions with the town administrator was that they had reached out to the town council about what happens if you have to separate the vote. And my understanding is also there's not a lot of clarity on who would or which entity would bear the costs if they had to conduct two separate ballots. But again, right now, there's not a, if you will, a connection between the town moderator and the school board moderator on the decision as far as a requirement to act the same. They're independent positions. So I've struggled with this, what the decision is, and I don't take it lightly. But in my opinion and with my experience, and as I mentioned to the board earlier, I happen to work in a federal position where I see the COVID statistics across the country by county every day. I'm keenly aware of the number of folks who are affected by this, and the fact that just yesterday we peaked for our unfortunate national record of deaths associated with COVID. And for me, in my experience, it's just not an appropriate time for us to ask some of the most vulnerable people in our community to gather together to have this discussion. I think that postponement is in order. And as was raised during the non-public session, really it falls to me. And if the consequence of that is that the constituency that put me into this position decides not to do that again, I respectfully understand that position. But a call has to be made, and in all good conscience, this is the only call I can make at this time, based on, again, all of the information that I fortunately or unfortunately have to go through on a daily basis for the other part of my life. Over.
Thank you, Luke.
Thank you. I appreciate the answer.
All right, so comment. Reports, do we have any suggestions, proposals for future agenda? Currently, we have the transportation study, we have all-day kindergarten, and copier analysis. Do we have anything else?
Yeah, could we add technology onto next month's?
Sure, anything particular?
Just kind of the state of, I was trying to find the strategic plan. I saw a link from technology June of 2014, but it's an empty link now. And I believe they were all 5, so it would have been over anyway. It was my understanding that facilities would discuss technology purchases and things like that, but I haven't seen that. So I'd just like to clarify technology issues in general.
Okay.
We had the survey that went out in October. I've done a little sheet on that, and I'd like to discuss some of the things.
Great. Anyone else?
This isn't about adding anything. This has to do again with the deliberative session. I know we've sent out surveys to parents and stuff in the past. Is it possible to do that with the deliberative session to see if people want to do it on time or if they want to delay?
So, sure.
I know
because
Luke's
it's not our decision,
but
right? Yeah.
But I mean,
yeah.
as a representative of the town, I figured he might want to hear what they want.
Yeah, I think we have to be really careful when it gets into somebody else's ownership, but certainly Luke could do that.
I'd be happy to ask the question. I'm just not sure what the forum would be for that to make sure that the question reached the appropriate audience. I wouldn't want to put something out there by way of asking the question and 2 things. One, presume that it was a majority vote because, frankly, it's not. But also, I wouldn't want to risk asking the question of some of the constituency and not being assured that all of the constituency was offered the same opportunity for feedback. Clearly, with the publication of this meeting and the other meetings, the intention is for anybody so concerned to attend. And we go through this every year, so it's not that the constituency is not aware that there's a meeting tonight. This is not a new process that we go through. So while I'm happy to go above and beyond to, as you suggest, gauge the temperature of the town, one of the other things that I'm aware of is not everyone in town is as keenly aware of the situation in the medical community, in the of COVID and its impacts out there. So I think there's a reason that these decisions are are put in the places that they are. And I will reserve the right to make the call at the end of the day. Over.
Thank you. Any other proposals for future agenda items? No. Jackie, do we have any non-public session? We do. Okay, so we are going to go into a breakout room for a non-public session pursuant to RSA 91-A:3, sub 2, sub C. We need a roll call vote of each board member to agree to this. So Sue,
Yes.
Rochelle,
Yes.
Heidi,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Wendy, yes. So what will happen is we're going to go do our breakout room. Then when we're done, we have to come back to close the meeting. There's no other agenda items on here. I don't know if there'll be a vote related to non-public because I don't know what it is, but you're welcome to hang out in here. Otherwise, we will see you February 3rd. We have no votes as part of the non-public. We are 1, 2, 3. Do I see Sue? Yeah. Okay. So we're all back. So the next meeting date is February 3rd. Even if the deliberative session slides, we'll still keep that date for our regular meeting. And then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Christine.
Great. Do I have a second? Second, Heidi. All right. I don't imagine there's discussion. So vote, Christine.
Yes.
Heidi.
Yes.
Sue.
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
And Wendy, yes. Thank you, ladies.
And thank you again, Jackie. That was a wonderful, very thorough presentation.
Thank you.